Добрий день, я вітаю.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Olga Atamanova, and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation today. It's been 9 years of the war and almost 1 year of the full-scale invasion of Russian aggressor in our land, and I traditionally want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our fight for freedom. Now we will be talking about situation in Dnipro region. Joining us online is Mykola Lukashuk, head of Dnipropetrovsk Regional Council, deputy chair of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Defense Council. Good afternoon, Mr. Mykola. Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Mykola. We know that today did not pass without missile strikes. There was information in all the mass media. So in general, was the situation in Dnipro region, what was going on during the weekend past? The situation is tense from the very beginning. The enemy shelled the Nikopol district. The consequences are being sorted out. More than 7 months, Nikopol region didn't spend any single day without shelling. It's either Markanets or Novogrigorivka communities are being shelled on a daily basis. Taken about last week, it was a tragedy when Russian occupiers inflicted the missile strike on Pavlograd, which resulted in death of 1 person and 9 more persons had to address the medics for aid. Right before this broadcast, we tried to confirm the information. 122 buildings were damaged and they were divided into a number of groups. First group is 8 buildings which are not subject to renewal. 28 more buildings are subject to capital repair after this strike by the enemy, and 86 more buildings which require some minor repairs. Together with the local community government, we work on the issues of material aid to those people who were affected by the strike. That will be discussed on the meeting of Pavlograd local community tomorrow. We understand that it's been almost a year that the enemy incessantly shells our territories. What is the information that you documented in terms of the destruction and casualties in civil population within last year? Well, talking about last week in Pavlograd, we had 1 person dead and 12 more injured. 1 of them is in difficult condition in the hospital. Talking about almost this year of the full-scale invasion, within that year 217 people died in our region. During last meeting that we had on the 3rd of February, we allocated costs for supporting of their families, and the families of those who perished are entitled to the material aid in the amount of 300,000 hryvnias. Talking about communities, the communities of Nikopol and Kryvyi Rih and Sinelnikov districts are mostly affected during this year. Kryvyi Rih is because it's closer to Kherson region. After liberation of Kherson region, the shelling ceased, and it's only missile strikes that are still going on there. Talking about Nikopol, there are constant shellings on a daily basis from Energodar direction, and talking about the Sinelnikov district, all the communities that border with Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions in this or that way are being massively shelled. Such strikes were more in numbers from in the beginning of the invasion, and now we see they are increasing again. As to the reconstruction, Mr. Mykola, are we already talking about this? Are there any residential buildings or apartment blocks which were during this time rebuilt, reconstructed, or is it only some operational repairs which are going on. Well, talking about residential areas and not the industrial facilities, according to our statistics, 4,445 buildings were destroyed either by shells or missiles or rockets. The local governments currently do the operational repairs there, and we will get back to capital repairs after our victory, because in the city of Nikopol it's impossible currently to build new apartment blocks or residential buildings, understanding that every day enemies' shells fall on their territory. Well, I apologize. And talking about people, we see that now the number of internally displaced individuals grew since our last meeting to 20,000 more. It was 370,000, now it's 390,000. The major part of such people remain in Dnipro, and another big city where they stay is Kryvyi Rih. Talking about Dnipro, it's 150,000 and 70,000 more in Kryvyi Rih. The rest of them are staying in other communities of our region. Talking about the critical infrastructure installations, what's the situations with the power supply in the region and what's going on in those settlements which are under constant shelling by the occupiers. Well, let's start with Nikopol. The situation was very difficult in Nikopol about a month ago, when there was no light for 6 or 7 hours. There is no central heating. It's only electric heating in place there, and when it was cold, the apartments within 2 hours when the light was on, they didn't become quite hot, quite warm, but together with the local military administration and with the state emergency service and with the support of local community, we opened additional resilience stations where people could get heated, and it kind of solved the problem. And Ukrinform, in cooperation with the tech, decreased the time of power shutdowns, and we are confidently through this period. We don't have power shutdowns anymore, but we still call all of our communities to save the electric power. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please take the microphone. Thank you. Good afternoon, Irina Momchur, Ukrinform. I would like to find out some details. You mentioned 122 buildings which were damaged. Is it in Nikopol region or no? I was talking about Pavlograd, specifically Pavlograd. Talking about the region, in total, the statistics is more than 2,000 residential buildings within the year of the full-scale invasion. Okay, that's clear. Do you have any figures as to the districts which currently suffer the most, and like Kryvyi Rih district, which is being currently shelled less? What are the figures for Nikopol, Sinelnikov districts? And the question is, do you have any recommendations for the people, and probably for the people with the families with children of school age who reside in the communities which are being most intensely shelled? For example, in Nikopol district, don't you advise them to move elsewhere in the region if there is such an opportunity? Thank you. All right, I cannot give you the breakdown, or let me check the statistics. Well, talking about Nikopol, obviously the biggest number of residential buildings there is damaged by the shellings. So in fact, it's about 2,000 installations in total. Talking about the Kryvyi Rih district, it's Zelenodila community that was suffering most during the first days of invasion, and about 30 to 40% of all the residential buildings were destroyed there, because the front line was in fact in the border of our region, and the distance from the forward edge was quite small. First it was 5 kilometers, then 20, then 70, and then our glorious armed forces liberated the area. Talking about Sinelnikov district, it's the rural area and the agrarian region, but we have a lot of villages with very significant damage degree. All of them are located almost in the border with Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions. As to the advice to the people, I'm talking about Nikopol. There was a gymnastic competition in Dnipro recently, and there was a lot of kids coming from Nikopol district. Many families came to Pokrov and other communities of Nikopol region, but more in the depth of the region. People remain there to either go or stay. It's up. I think it should be up to every single family. Thank you for your answer. And maybe the last question about this tragedy that happened in Dnipro. Did the families of those affected receive material aid already? And what will be happening to that building that was hit by a Russian missile? All of us together with the regional military administration, deputy corps, and the regional administration, we did everything possible to support the people, to support the families. We allocated a subvention, the material aid to the budget of Dnipro, the city of Dnipro, so that people had material aid. I mean, the families who were residing in that building in the Peremogi Avenue 118. There is a staff deployed there, and those payments will be disbursed. We provided the families of all those who died, not only in the city but in the region too. All the families received 300,000 hryvnias per family. Thank you very much for joining our broadcast, dear colleagues. I'm reminding you, joining us was Mykola Lukashuk, the head of Dnipro Regional Council, the deputy chair of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Defense Council. Thank you for bearing with us. Our team is working on the schedule for tomorrow, so bear with us and work together for our victory. Trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.